thank you so much for joining me on another episode of Why I Love Flagler County, your local podcast spotlighting local businesses and local residents on what they love about being a part of Flagler County. So today I'm super excited to have my guest Brian with us today. Brian, thanks so much for coming on and joining us. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Mace.
Of course. Well, Brian and I know each other. We've known each other, I think, for a little bit now because he's been
Hmm.
in the BNI chapter here, but we haven't really gotten a chance to really connect one-on-one and talk more. So I'm super excited to learn a whole bunch of things. He's talked about a lot of interesting stuff because with
Yeah.
what you're doing at BNI, your 40-second commercials, I feel like I learned something new
Hmm.
every week. But before we get into that, I'd love for you to kind of kick us off and tell me a little bit about your journey coming here to
Yeah.
Flagler, coming here to Palm Coast, and how has that been for you?
Yeah. So I moved down. So let me start with this. I'm 32, right? So I moved down with my family when I was going into high school. So, I was young, 13 years old, I think, at the time. So went to FPC, go dogs, and then graduated, went to UCF. And then, throughout college, worked as a lifeguard and kind of worked back and forth in the community throughout the summers. And my father's always kind of been an entrepreneur himself. He had his own business since he was in his mid 20s, basically. And so I've kind of seen him go through that. And he has a business that basically he started right around that time when I was in college. So what really inspired me to move back into Flagler County and work doing what I do was seeing what he does and seeing the process he went through to not only plant roots but also build a business in the community. And I thought, what, I love it here. I love being in close proximity to the beach. I love what we have around here, and to have the ability to help, to not only come back and be a part of the community, but to help him grow something that eventually would be his retirement, to me was special. So.
That's super awesome. Well, that's really,
Hmm.
really great that, you started out here young. And I think sometimes when we start something young, we have to leave to kind of come back and understand, like,
Yeah.
we do actually enjoy it, kind of. Well,
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about, you and your dad's business and
Hmm.
how's that worked out?
Yeah, so it's been great. So, like I said, I had that period of time, growing up where I was that young kid that kind of jumped into the seat with
Sure.
him and went on service calls with him. So that was my taste in it, right? And then when we moved here, they went through an experience where they decided to do something completely different, opened up a restaurant, had that experience, and again, through all that, highs come with lows. Decided to get back into the field. My father did, and so I saw what that took to kind of start something, and it's not like he worked for this big corporation. He didn't have a pension put aside. So he was basically, like every other person that owns their own small business, you're counting on yourself to eventually one day reach a point where you can support yourself and kick back or do whatever it is you want to do. So seeing him kind of go through that and knowing that, hey, I've seen him do it all his life. I'm more than capable of coming in and helping him not only grow the business, but hopefully get to a point where he can, choose to what that next chapter is going to be for him, whenever that is, on his own terms, and not, continue working because he has to. To me, that was a special opportunity, and so that's kind of what fueled me to want to join the business. And then, what little interest I already had in that field from being exposed to it my whole life just kind of
Right.
grew into a passion. And I think now I think like everybody else in their field, for me, when I walk into a building for the first time or a house, that's kind of the first thing I gravitate towards, is thinking about,
Right.
as nerdy as that sounds, the heating and air conditioning and how everything's
Yeah.
worked out,
Yeah.
but it's just kind of grown into a passion. I love doing it.
That's so awesome. I was talking to Jeff McFarland, who from Mac Atlantic, who is an RB&I
Yeah.
group, and he said the exact same thing, is that he just comes and he goes into buildings and he knows exactly what he wants to start snooping around in. And it's something
Yeah.
that you can really only have through experience. But that's so cool that your parents opened a restaurant for a short time. My family
Yeah.
used to own a
Yeah.
restaurant as well. So I
Okay.
know starting one and having one, it's not an easy feat by
It's not. No.
any stretch of the imagination.
No.
So for you to witness, them starting that, I think it's really important to see something in those starting phases, because I think a lot of the time we look at things and we're like, oh, that's established, that's good.
Yeah.
It was easy enough to do that. It's like, no, it was actually a lot of
It
work.
takes more. Yeah, I mean, like, again, not to get too sidetracked off of it, but I remember, again, I was probably junior or senior in high school at the time. And it's not like, he had all this money to basically hire a full staff. And,
Right.
it's grassroots. So he rented a place out, he built the restaurant out, and then he was the chef. And, starting off, he was the chef. My mother's was the head of the front. I worked as a waiter there as 16, 17 years old.
Right.
And, he'd go in every morning, 7, 8 o'clock to start prepping the food. The restaurant would open at 11 o'clock. We'd be open 11 to, I think it was 9 o'clock, maybe 10 o'clock on weekends. And then you close, you got to clean, you got to do all that and prep for the next day. And he's right back at it. He'd probably leave most days midnight, 1 o'clock. He'd be right back
Mhm.
there at 7, 8 o'clock, and
Yeah.
that was 6, 7 days a week. And so,
Yeah.
seeing and helping and being a part of that, and just kind of teaches you what that work ethic really is about, and that nothing comes easy. It's not, just like you said, it's not what it's all cracked out to be when you first see something from afar.
Yeah.
Um, but it's motivational when you see somebody that, in your family, for example, like my father, that he did that to provide. And if he didn't do it, who knew where that next paycheck was going to come from? He had to do it. So
Right. Yeah. Well,
gives you perspective.
I was about to say, it sounds like you inherited a really great work ethic. My
I
aunt pretty much had the exact same schedule, so everything you're saying is just like, oh my gosh, it's like taking me back. It's like, oh, the good old days. I worked at my
Yeah.
family's restaurant from 11 to 16.
So you get it. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah, and I worked even younger, but, like, as a bus girl, so I just, like, cleaned all the tables during the holidays and stuff, so, yes,
Yeah.
I was that's where they got their employees, was my family. That was our staff, was my family. Um, but I would love for you to talk a little bit about, so if you wanna explain just really quick on how you're helping
Sure.
families currently, and if anyone has any questions, like, what are some common questions people get when you kinda mention your profession?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm in heating and AC, so with what we do here, there's no shortage of that, living in Florida, in Flagler County. So, I think first things first is, obviously people don't think about air conditioning until it breaks down. So I
Right.
think that's, for me, that's a big thing that I try to preach about often in our BNI meetings. A lot of times you'll hear me say that I believe in trying to be preventative and not so much reactive. And we're here, obviously, in that situation when the system breaks down, we're going to be here. But if I can be exposed to any homeowners prior and kind of do an inspection, get a feel for, hey, this is where you currently stand. Check everything from ductwork to insulation, everything that affects your home's heating and cooling system. And again, if I can lay out a specific, kind of a plan, or at least a snapshot to you of, hey, this is the position you're in now. At least every homeowner has the ability to kind of pick and choose what's going to work for their budget on their own terms, and not when they have to. Far too often, we step into homes in the middle of summer, and for better or worse, unfortunately, to get something fixed and upright, we end up going and diagnosing and leaving a customer with a quote for repair. And whether you like it or not, you have to get it done a lot of times, or else who's going to live without air conditioning? But there are other ways that we can go about it, where hopefully we can try to prevent these homeowners from having that breakdown. And if that does end up happening, hopefully there's enough preventative measures where the repair is not going to be costly.
Right. Yeah, when we
So.
first got our house, it was so funny. So we got a new build, and so he was
Mhm.
explaining how we can take care of our, HAC unit. And he's like, "Listen, if you don't do this, like if we come here and it's broken down and we can tell you were not fixing it, we can't do that much to help you because it's pretty simple
Yeah.
to just clean it up." And I think I got the notification of today's the day we're supposed to like clean it out and stuff. So I'll check with my
Yeah.
mom, make sure we're doing that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, living down here with that AC sounds like the most ridiculous thing ever.
Yeah, it's tough. And again, like I think it's benefited me growing up where, you know, it's not like I decided in school, hey, I want to go into this field and
Sure.
I want to study it. And my passion comes from a different place. So
Mhm.
in a sense, I kind of approach it from a lot of perspective that a lot of other homeowners do, where, for me, when I walk into a customer's home, my goal is I want to educate them. I want to be able to simplify things in layman's terms for them, and give them options. And then from there, the customer's the boss. As long as I do my job and properly educate them, give them their options, explain those options, and answer whatever questions the customer has to kind of simplify it and make it make sense for them. My responsibility there is done. And at that point, you know it's up to the homeowner in terms of what direction they want to go in, and the pros and cons have already been laid out. So, again, I think a lot of what I do, I approach it from that perspective of let me educate and let me teach and let me answer questions, and then if I've done my job correctly, the homeowner a lot of times they've got the common sense to know the right way of going about things. So
Right. Yeah. Well, that's great that not only do you come in and you help fix it, but you help, educate them on what you're doing and what exactly is going on.
Mhm.
So if something were to happen, like say, complete out of the blue, but like maybe like you no
yeah,
longer doing this and they have to go find someone else to fix it. Well, now they know like because of you how it was fixed last time, what was going on, what was the problem, what the new problem is.
yeah,
Just to have that awareness about, your own living unit is really important because you just never know
yeah.
when you're gonna need to know, oh yeah, Ryan did tell me about this when it comes to my AC. No wonder he told me that. It makes sense now.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, and there's a lot again, so many facets to what we do, but part of what we do, for example, is air purification, and that's something where, again, to me, I think awareness is key because a lot of homeowners don't think about air purification, but
right.
the air you and me are breathing right now has passed through our own systems, and if I don't do my job and open up that unit and show you, hey, this is potentially what is inside the unit that your air is passing through, you're breathing what's going through this. How else would you know? You're not going to
Right.
think about that. So again, that kind of goes back to just trying to do my job thoroughly and trying to do a good job of educating and kind of showing homeowners that picture of currently what's going on. And then from there, again, I'll answer questions or a lot of times we'll address the issues that make sense to do. So,
Yeah, I know allergies are a really big thing here, and like I just had like the worst bout, like month of allergies,
mhm.
right? And a lot of that does come from like your air system, right? Is if you're tracking so much
Yeah.
pollen to your house, then you're not taking enough care of your kind of environment, then it can kind of just stay there, is what I remember you saying once, right?
Yeah, so a lot of it's that, and it's not so much, that it generates in the home, but you've got outside pollen, you got things like that, like you mentioned. What a lot of people don't think about is you have a lot of contamination that comes from inside the home. So,
Mm.
the products that we use to clean our furniture and clean our countertops, when you buy a new piece of furniture or a new TV, that out of the box smell that you're smelling, a lot of that is chemicals that are coming off those products that are in your
Wow.
home, and you know, big or small, some people are more sensitive to them than others, but regardless, a lot of contamination we don't realize comes right from byproducts inside our own very home. And there's a lot of solutions that could be put in your system that can really help purify and clean a lot of that stuff up.
Well, that's awesome to know. So thank you so
Hmm.
much, Brian, for coming on today, sharing a few
Yeah.
minutes and kind of educating me on a lot of whole things. So I'll definitely make sure I have all of Brian's information in the description so people can click, copy, paste, make it a little bit easier. Definitely check out. Just see if there's anything that you need. We're going into summer. I definitely would prefer, someone just telling me you're good for the summer rather than come June, mid-June, and you're like, it's like 1,000 degrees outside and it's
Yeah.
1,000 degrees inside. You're like, what went wrong?
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Brian, for the time. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a great time. Thanks,
Of
Macy.
course. And to everyone listening, thank you so much as well. I really appreciate you. And I will see you next time. Bye.